Hello everybody, welcome to Kerbal Space Program. In this little tutorial here, we're basically going to talk about how to get your ship into orbit. Now, I remember when I first started playing Kerbal Space Program, oh gosh, it was probably like version 0.13, it was a long time ago. I struggled with trying to get my ship into orbit. I would crash and burn all the time. And it was very frustrating, and only until I read up and watched a lot of the other YouTube Let's Players out there was I actually able to figure it out. So I figured, you know, why not make my own little tutorial video? So let's get right into it. I'm gonna start a game here, and I'm playing version 0.23 with the career mode enabled. But I think for this particular tutorial, we're gonna play the career. I'm sorry, we're gonna play the sandbox, just so we can, you know, get used to the basic parts that, you know, you can use to get into orbit. So player name, we'll say Dompy. That's usually what I go for. And flag, why not our home planet, Kerbin? Let's start it. Okay, so here we are at our space center here, and you know, actually in sandbox, it's closed. I figured there's something like that. Alright, let's go right over to the VAB and let's just talk about building a rocket here. So here we are, and since we're talking about basic rockets, when picking a pod, I usually try to go for the smallest pod, you know, one of the lightest pods. And as we see here, Command Pod Mark 1 is probably, you know, what you'd really want to start with, just because it's basic, it's small, and it's light, doesn't have a whole lot of mass, so it should be perfect. So there it is. Let's launch it. No, just kidding. So we want to go to utility, and we want the astronaut to survive. So out of this whole giant list, here's our tiny parachute, the Mark 16. So we'll just pop that right into place. Okay, that'll ensure that he will survive eventually. Next, let's say we want to do a re-entry. Now, we don't want to have the whole rocket coming blasting back into the atmosphere, so we're going to want to just have the top part with the parachute. So we'll put a stack decoupler right in there. This way, when that jettisons, we're just a pod, right? Just a little capsule. Now, we should probably put on some kind of orbital stage so we can do basic orbital maneuvers while we're up there. So I'll pick this right here, the FLT 400. It gives us, if you right click on it, fuel 180 and mass only 2.25, so it's not that heavy. Talking about engines, we have a lot of options here. Now these ones are kind of bigger, they burn a lot more fuel, but for our intents and purposes in orbit, we can get away with the little LV909. It's got pretty good fuel consumption, it doesn't really go through it too much, and it's got a good enough thrust for outer space at least. Okay, so, and remember, this is just an orbiter. It's not really, it doesn't have to be too big. Something we are going to need though, before I forget, is control. Is an SAS, so we'll go over here to control, and you know, I always have trouble deciding if I want the advanced stabilizer or the reaction wheel. The way I see it is this one over here is a little less effective than this one. Is this one mass 0.5, 0.3? Okay, so it's a little lighter than this one over here, but you get more control. So I'm gonna say let's go for the advanced stabilizer. We'll pop that in there. Okay, and that will give us a little bit of control while we're launching. Let's see, next we are... should we put RCS on it? You know what? Yeah, we might as well. We're going to want to maneuver while we're in space, so come over here and we'll grab the R25 RCS fuel tank, and we can pop that right underneath there like that. There we are. Come over here to control, we'll grab our thrust blocks, and I'm going to just push the X key, which will enable symmetry. We're going to get 4. And before we pop them on here, we have to pick where they go. We can't just say, oh, right there sounds good, because it's going to thrust and it's not going to it's not going to be good. We want to enable center of mass over here, and basically the way we want to do this is think of this whole thing as basically a seesaw or a lever, and this being the fulcrum, the point right here. We want to put these thrusters so that they're about equidistant apart from the center of mass. Let's see, we'll put it here, we'll move it down a little bit. Actually, up would be more appropriate. Here, maybe right about there. So it's not perfect, it's not going to matter a whole lot, but you just kind of want to balance that so that these are about equidistant from the center of mass. There we are, so that when we thrust, the ship won't rotate all out of control. Okay, next we're going to need some power. Now you can go with these standard batteries. You can kind of turn this off. You can put them on the sides like this, or if you wanted to go crazy, you could use these. Personally, I like these round ones just because they kind of fit right in there. And you have power. You get about 1,000 charge with that, which is probably way more than we're going to need, but, you know, you never know. Next, we're going to need some panels. Now, when I make orbiters and stuff that go into space, I prefer, honestly, the 1x6s over the 2x3s. I just think it looks cooler, but, you know, it's your own personal preference. And to save mass, I won't use these big, bulky ones. We're just going to go with these basic ones here. And these don't really matter. I'm just going to push the Shift X key to bring it down to 2, and I'm going to pop these right here. Okay, so now we have some power and we have batteries to store it. Go to action groups here, and we want to deploy these. I'll use custom 1. Click on it, toggle the panels. All right, and next, let's before we go any further, let's name this thing. Let's call it Basic Orbiter Mark 1. If we want to make any changes to it, we can increase the Mark number. All right, so essentially this is going to be the ship that we orbit the planet in. That's it. But we need to get it into space, right? So we're going to get another decoupler, pop that guy right there, and we're going to continue building. So, and when I make these like 2.5 diameter, I think it is, ships, I love using the stack tricouplers. So I'm just going to look for it. Here it is. Symmetry back to 1. Kind of pop that guy around there like that. Propulsion. I'm going to grab these FLT 800s. You know, I feel like these give you good amount of fuel for the weight that it is. Okay, so we're going to take symmetry, press the X key twice. Triple symmetry. Triple symmetry. Triple the power. And I think, you know what, we'll put 3. I like the number 3. That should do us. Alright, let's talk about engines. Now, when you are launching stuff like this, it doesn't make sense to use the giant Rockomax mainsail because, well, A, it doesn't fit, and B, it's just way too much thrust. So we're going to use one of these simple LV engines. Now with the LV T45, you see here we get max thrust of 200, and actually, oh, this is the vectoring engine. We get a little vectoring range 1, which means we can use this engine to steer. If we use the other one, its big cousin over here, you get a little more thrust, 215, but you can't steer with it. The rocket becomes very unstable. So I'm going to use the vectoring engine here. 3 of them. Pop them on like that. Alright, now, if we just leave it like this and launch it, these 3 legs, I guess, are going to be very unstable. So we have to come over here, use these strut connectors with symmetry mode, and strut it up. This way it gets all 3, right? Come up here, and let's get up on the top too. There we are. And, you know, just to be safe, we can come over here. Maybe we can strut down like this. We'll see if it works. And it lets us. Good. It's in a good mood today. Alright. Save it again. Now that we're all stabilized, I think we should add boosters because I think every rocket should just always have boosters. I mean, they're the most fun, right? So we're going to take these radial decouplers, the little small ones here, and we're going to go right about there. And we are going to take, since we're going the small route, the little fuel booster. These little guys, little solid fuel boosters here. Isn't that cute? And just for good looks, I'm not really sure if this actually does anything yet. I mean, it was supposed to, it might do it now. This is aerodynamic nose cone. I'm going to just pop that right on there. Just because it looks nice. And of course, struct connectors. We're just going to come through here and with symmetry mode on, of course, attach it right to the base. Generally, anytime you attach anything, you're going to want to strut it. I mean, I've played this game so much and learned from horrible crashes. You just want to strut everything. Alright, now, again, if we just launched it like this, I think its own weight would cause it to just break these engines off. So what we're going to do is go structural, take the launch stability enhancers, and we're just going to pop those guys right on there, just like that. That should hold it up. Now, let's worry about staging. Stage 6, counterintuitively, is actually the first stage that'll go. And so we're going to want to have the boosters fire with all the rockets. So I'm just going to drag these rockets down here from stage 4 down to stage 6. Take the boosters, drag them down too, and grab these arms here that disconnect, because we're going to want those to disconnect with the engine fire. Otherwise, they'll, you know, disconnect and the whole rocket will fall. It won't be good. Alright, so this looks pretty good. I'm trying to think if it needs anything else. I mean, we have the SAS, we have battery, we have RCS. You know, I think we're good to go. Let's take this thing onto the launch pad, test it out. And if it doesn't go well, and if I fail horribly wrong, we can always go right back to the VAB and check it out again. We're loading, we're loading, we're loading. Here we are, okay. So the first thing we're going to do is get this thing throttled up with the shift key, get it all the way up to 100%, and we're going to press the T key, enable our SAS. This will stop us from going all sorts of crazy haywire. And the only thing left to do is just launch this thing. So we're going to hit space, and here we go. And it's going up. That's a good start. Just check our resources here. You can see our solid fuels burning down nicely. This will just give us a little boost that we need to get up there. A little boosty boost. About a 1.5 kilometers up. And it's a nice day on Kerbin, if I do say so myself. Nice ocean, nice mountains. Coming up on solid fuel, we're going to stage these in a second. And there we go. Away they go, like bombshells falling to the earth. To the Kurth, I guess I should say. Coming up on 4.5 kilometers. Hoping that all of this fuel is good enough to get us up there. It's possible we may need to add an extra little stage in there, maybe a few more boosters. I mean, everyone could use some more boosters, right? We'll see how we go. Good shot of the moon right there. Getting there, getting some nice height. Now, as a basic rule of thumb, you want to keep your speed roughly below 200 meters per second if you're, you know, under 10 kilometers. You go any faster than that and the atmosphere is actually going to push back on you. In effect, it's like having an engine pointed the other way, pushing right down on you. But since we're almost at 10, I'm going to just let it go. Also, another key thing at 10 kilometers, we're going to want to start pitching over to the right. I'm going to press the D key, moving to 90 degrees off the planet. Alright, ever so slightly at first. You don't want to overdo it, because what will happen is you'll hit your apoapsis too soon, and you'll start falling again. So we're just going to, ever so slightly, just every once in a while, just continuously pitch over to the 90-degree mark. Good way to check is press the M key, look at the map. So this is our orbit. This is what's happening right now. And, you know, a lot of people get really technical about this, but I always like to eyeball it. And if I'm ever too sharp of an angle, that means I need to pitch over more. If I'm too wide of an angle, I need to be having more to the left, more altitude. But since we're getting pretty high, it's getting away from us now, we're going to pitch over even more. Just going to keep turning it, and you'll notice as I pitch over, you'll see that this line here now is moving laterally a little faster. And that's what you want. You kind of want to keep the apoapsis around, you know, 40 to 50 seconds away. Any more than that, and you're losing efficiency, right? Pitching over, getting that lateral velocity that we need. So literally what we're seeing here is we're just turning the spacecraft over. We're basically turning it 90 degrees and, you know, relevant to the planet. What that's going to do, you'll see our orbital velocity is ramping up like crazy, which is good. So check the apoapsis, about 55 kilometers. So this is the kind of curve you want, this nice even curve. It's not too far up and it's not too far over. And what this is doing is, it's called being efficient, you know, it's the best way. So pitch right over now to 90, because we're really getting up there. Accelerating at about 3-4 Gs. Now at 100 we're going to hit the X key and it's going to kill our engines. Hopefully we've had a nice efficient burn, and boom, there we are. Went a little over, that's okay. So what's happening now is we're just literally coasting. Engines are off and we are just about at the top of the atmosphere. There's this minimal drag that's happening up here. Barely anything whatsoever. And we've picked up so much speed that we are literally just able to coast all the way the rest of the way. Now, if we don't do anything, though, you know, don't get too comfortable, because if we don't do anything, we are eventually going to fall. We don't want to fall, because that would be very bad for, who's this, Jebediah? Yeah, Jebediah Kerbin. We don't want to lose him on our first flight. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the apoapsis, and apoapsis basically just means the highest point in orbit, or the, you know, the peak of the curve. Click on the apoapsis, add maneuver node, and what we're going to do is pull this in our prograde vector here. This is the way the ship's moving. We're going to basically boosting our speed, making a burn forwards. We're going to pull it out until, here comes the periapsis up here, until this just comes and flips. Here it comes. There it is. Just move it back a little bit. You're going to want it to be right about, when it flips to the side like that, you know it's about even. 101 by 102. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect unless you're a perfectionist, in which case you could sit here and tweak around with this for hours. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to stick with this. So you'll notice on the nav ball now we have a little blue marker. So we are going to point the ship, pressing the D key, right onto that marker. And you might be saying, well, look, we're pointing down now towards the planet. That's no good, right? Well, by the time we get to our burn, see our node is in 1 minute and 30, this marker will have shifted to the prograde vector, so we will be just fine. So we got about 1 minute 30. It's going to take a 12-second burn, and what this basically means is we have 435 meters per second more change in velocity to accrue. See, right now we're going about 1800. It's not enough to go around the planet. We need about 400 more. It's going to bring us up to around 2500 meters per second. That's what you're going to want. But you can't just burn anywhere. You get the most efficiency if you burn right at the apoapsis. What that's going to do is it's going to apply the energy directly to the other side of the orbit here. Oop, that's my cell phone. Sounds like a doorbell. Just ignore that. I'm going to do a little time warp. Now you kind of want to split it in half. You don't want to burn right at 12 seconds because technically we're not at the mark yet. You're going to want to split it right in half. So half of 12 is 6. We're going to burn right about at 6 seconds. This way you get half the burn on this side of the mark and half the burn on that side of the mark. Should, in theory, be equal. That's what I've learned anyways. Here we are at the 6-second mark. We're just going to full throttle, full bore. And if you see, we just made it with our fuel. We're going to actually have a little left over. If you want to be neat and tidy, let's jettison the stage while it's still not in orbit. Alright, check this out. We're going to hit space. Okay. Hit space again to activate this engine. And we're going to actually continue. We're going to finish the orbit with our little orbiter. And we should have enough fuel to get back down again. Just going to find that node, keep burning on it. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that. But I did it, and the only reason is I don't want space junk floating around my planet. We're going to avoid that Kessler syndrome, right? Alright, 20 meters per second to go, and Seco. Get rid of our maneuver node here, and let's check it out. 99 by 103. Now, it's uneven because I sat there and dawdled and talked instead of, you know, actually burning. And if we really wanted to fix that, we could point the ship, I think this is called normal. If you point straight up, point it right there and burn a little bit, and see that? Now we're 100 by 101. It's a little better. 101 by 101. There, see that? See, I can be a perfectionist after all. And I tell you what, if you did it just like that, you now have an orbiter. And if we go to debris, here is the booster. Now the booster is going to follow the same trajectory that we were just on before we made the injection burn, so it's gonna crash, and that's exactly what we want. But we will not crash because we finished our orbit, right? Now, here's something important. Don't forget to do this. I'm going to press the 1 key and deploy the panels. Because what they added, I think it was in version 22.22, is now when you use SAS or just maneuver at all, it takes electrical charge. And so if you just let it sitting around, you will run out of power, and you'll be very upset when you switch to your vehicle and it doesn't respond or do anything. So we have power accumulating, floating, we're enjoying the visuals. Look at the moon right there. And there we have it. We just launched a spaceship into orbit. Press the R key, and if we maneuver, we see the RCS jets firing. I mean, that's just all kinds of fun. We can do little spins, and it just goes forever. Make Jebediah sick, except I think Jebediah likes it. He doesn't mind that at all. He is loving that. I mean, look at that face. He doesn't even care. He loves that. But some of us might get sick, so we'll stop it. Put the T key on. Now, once we're in orbit, we can do all sorts of orbital maneuvers, like raising the apoapse, raising the periapse, lowering all this stuff, changing the inclination. Inclination is the angle that the orbit's on. Right now we're on a 0-degree inclination, which basically means we're straight across the equator. Raising that up means that we can make our orbit more tilted. And there are benefits to doing that, which we can discuss a little bit later. We don't have to do it in this video particularly. But that is your basic, how to take a basic spaceship and launch it into orbit. So I hope you guys have learned a lot from it. Join us in the next episode. We can talk about orbital mechanics, you know, how to raise and lower the orbit, how to change inclination, basically Orbits 101. Alright, so join us next time. Thanks for watching.